Emily, I'm concerned I'm not going to the restream.
You are.
Are we on
Yeah,
restream?
John. Yeah.
Well, then it's time to greet everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you all for being here. Quite amazing. And well, welcome to the virtual space here on the Tuning Fork Institute for Cultural Activism International on May 22nd in New York, May 23rd in Australia and Europe. Greetings. A few short announcements. Tenzin, if you don't mind, one of which will take time, but not exactly time, but immeasurable space, the immense gratitude we have for all the people who are here present on the show. Thanks to Bob and Nena Thurman, Gandon Thurman, the Tibet House US staff in New York, and to Michael Burbank and Lynn Schauwecker, the staff of Menla, and to Ashwin Verghese, International Campaign for Tibet, for contributing to today's unprecedented outreach for Tenzin CHOEGYAL. This is the 40th episode of the Tuning Fork, and this is a huge milestone for Emily and I. Our first show was in 2020 in September with Ann Waldman. We want to thank our friends and sponsors who've made this opportunity possible for all of us over the past 3 years. Claudia Miller, Frederica Foster, James Merriweather, and numerous others. Thank you for your ongoing participation and generous contributions. Please feel our appreciation and gratitude to all the extraordinary artists also and collectives, our worldwide cultural activist guests since September 2020. Well, that's about it for the announcements. Let's begin the show. We'll pick up a few items at the end of the show, events that are coming up. Tenzin CHOEGYAL, the extraordinary Tibetan troubadour, along with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, 200,000 Tibetans, was catapulted onto the world stage thanks to the occupation of the Chinese, a topic that we'll visit during the show a little bit more. Generally, the protocols of the show, by the way, are that we'll get to know each other a little bit, Tenzin CHOEGYAL and Emily and I. And this is kind of like a dinner conversation, so please sit back and enjoy our main guest and tuning in to Tenzin CHOEGYAL's work and life activities that are so remarkable and inspiring. Tenzin, thanks again. After about an hour, everybody will have a chance on this format on Zoom to interact with Tenzin CHOEGYAL for about 30 minutes. Sometimes we go a little bit longer. We understand friends that are in Europe, like Margaret, who went to sleep early, our board member and collaborator, went to sleep early and got up at 2 a.m. She may just bail out. We understand.
It's recorded.
Yeah, it's recorded, of course. But Margaret, you may not be able to get back to sleep after this. All right. And thanks everybody who's out there that we can't see. Also, some people like to remain anonymous on Zoom. We appreciate that. But here we are, this beautiful format. Oh, there's David Simmons. David Simmons is coming in from Los Angeles, and maybe Claudia's out there too. We just said thanks to Claudia and some friends for their sponsorship and help. Anyway, Tenzin CHOEGYAL. Yeah, you know, I remember when I interviewed Philip Glass for the Refuge film, we talked about how bizarre it was that, you know, the invasion of Tibet caused everyone to, you know, sort of learn about Tibet suddenly. Tibet was catapulted onto, you know, the world stage. Martin Scorsese saw it in the newsreel when he was a little boy, you know, in the cinema, because he had asthma, so he couldn't play with the other boys. He was in the cinema watching movies. And that was part of his inspiration to make Kundun. But what do you remember, Tenzin CHOEGYAL, about, you know, this time of the diaspora and the invasion? Where were you? Maybe you weren't born yet, or you were, you know, hearing stories from your family. What can you tell us about sort of your knowledge and understanding and how this impacted your family?
Hi, everyone. Good morning from Australia. I'm having my coffee while you guys are having dinner.
Well, wait, you just came back from Japan, isn't it?
Yes, I did. About a week ago. I had a 10-day tour over there with 5 concerts and 2 days of recording with my Japanese collaborators. Yeah, so looking back, probably I was just a toddler when my parents were escaping Tibet. It was during the Cultural Revolution in early 70s. And so I don't really remember much of how I came out, because I was just a little toddler. And I'm pretty sure I would have been on the back of my parents. My parents were nomads, holding the lineage of nomadic tradition. And so they came through Mustang area and then came down into Nepal. And then I do remember the time onwards, a little bit of things from the time onwards from Nepal itself in Swambhu, when I was living in Swambhu.
Now was that was like in the 70s, yeah? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, early 70s. Yeah,
so like by that time, His Holiness had been established in Dharamsala, right? And
in Dharamsala already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So a lot of my parents' generation who came into exile, they just slowly followed His Holiness's foot
Right.
into exile.
Right.
And then you know, it's unfortunate that it's like a lot of my parents' generations actually by now most of them have left this blue planet that we call home, in hope of visiting their homeland back. And as a toddler, I do remember, like, my parents, the way they lived was always ready to go back home. Probably you, I think we were living in a, you know, like a very small little one room house with everybody in the house, with all the beds being the lounge room and the bedroom and the kitchen and everything. So just 8 by 8 was a room that is, you know, like everything for the household to happen, you know, like.
So that's in Nepal, right?
That's in Nepal, yeah.
So like, let's make it clear to people that Mustang is part of Tibet, and Mustang and Nepal are connected, right? You can walk from Mustang into Nepal.
Yeah. So Mustang is a little kingdom by itself. It used to be an autonomous region for Nepal, and its tradition and culture is very Tibetan. Spoken language is Tibetan, and literature that they read is Tibetan. And they have a king who passed away a couple of years ago. And I was very fortunate to be. I've always wanted to visit Mustang because I kind of wanted to track back the footsteps of my parents. So a couple of years ago, I did go back. And only thing that I could remember and trigger my memory was the smells that like on the way when I was trekking for 21 days up that way. So now I don't know how we are following with the chronology of it, but
well, I mean, one thing that's interesting, you're a singer, you're a musician, and you never had lessons. I mean, you didn't really study music or, composition, or like you were hearing your mother sing. Like I heard my grandmother was singing opera when I was a little boy. And, it'd be great to understand a little bit what that sort of relationship was with your mom or other family members related to music or, mantra or chanting, or what was this that you, have immersed yourself and occupied, inhabited the space of, this musical ambassador that you are for not only Tibetan culture, but for activism.
So, in terms of the musical memory of my as a traditional mother, like traditional Tibetan mother, my parents would rise up quite early in the morning, like 4 a.m, and then start chanting while doing the, so in a half awakened state of my, in the morning, kind of drifting back into, coming into the morning from sleep, I would hear her murmur the chants.
Maybe while you're dreaming too, yeah?
Probably, yeah. Like, and then also, she would sing a lot. She would sing a lot during her house chores, during the chores that she would be doing, whatever she, either she's cooking or, washing clothes or just going for a walk or going a circumambulation around the Sambhunath temple, stupa. So, every time she would be either singing or doing some chants. So those are the memories that I have of early sounds that I have heard.
Did you feel this in your body? Do you remember feeling it in your body, the sound, and sort of resonating, tuning fork, with
I'm not sure about that, like whether it's resonating to me or not, but it obviously, it had an impact on me. Like later when I was actually admitted to Tibetan Children's Village School in Dharamsala, when my dad passed away in Nepal, I have always had this urge in my heart that one day I want to be able to, like when you were asked as a kid in school, what do you want to be as you grow up? I've always answered saying I want to be a singer or an artist. So that was in the early state of my childhood. That was already instilled in there, but I didn't know what is what it takes to be an artist and what it takes to be a singer. But there was that calling in me. And I guess it was instilled in me from the sounds that I've heard around me. And while I was growing up as a refugee kid in Nepal and in India. So, and I was actually in the school that I was growing up, there was 3,000 other kids living with me. So
in Dharamsala, in
Dharamsala.
Wow.
Yeah. So with the chronology of my life, I left Tibet with my parents into Mustang, came to Nepal, and my dad passed away as a kid. And I don't remember much of my dad because he passed away when I was very
Do you know how your dad passed away?
I don't remember much, but I do remember that I can't picture his face, but at the same time I can picture his height and the overall look of his physical being.
Yeah.
And he had a really long hair and with a braided red tassel in his hair.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the picture that I have in my mind. So occasionally, and then he used to play flute in the evenings when he had his whole day's work done. He would drink a little bit of what is that called? The millet, the fermented millet. The fermented millet where you pour hot water on it, and then it's a bit of an alcoholic intoxication drink.
I wish we had some now. I'm sorry we don't have any right now available.
Yeah. So that was my that was my memory of my father is like that. He played flute, long hair, and a tall, warm-hearted being, and then my mother was really super kind lady. She was like, both of them were from nomadic lineage, and they knew even though they're what we call as, like in academic world, probably they are called uneducated people. But in the world of, knowing their nature and their surroundings, they knew exactly what was going to happen tomorrow, just looking at the sky. And also they knew the pastures that they, like the environment that they are in. So they were super in tune with the general sphere that they lived in. Yeah. But it was I mean, my mother was always, probably, I do remember the way she had her home packed. It always looked like they were ready to go back home, as I remember.
Yeah.
But now I think a lot of the Tibetan diaspora now living there, they are now well settled in wherever they are. But the generation before us,
right,
in His Holiness's generation, most of them, a lot of them actually, whenever I visited their homes, they always look like they are ready to, if something happens tomorrow, they were ready to go back.
Yeah. Tenzin, did your mom know that you became a singer and that you went around the world traveling?
No. I wish that had happened, but I was in my teens when she passed away. She actually, it was quite an amazing thing. I was admitted to a Tibetan children's village in Dharamsala.
And that was started by the Dalai Lama's sister, isn't it?
Sister, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was admitted there while my mother followed us because she couldn't bear the fact that we we kids were living in India, and while she was living in Nepal. So she came to India, followed us, and then she became a foster parent for 100 other kids in Manali, in a Tibetan children's village school in Manali, like near Patlikul, which is 12 hours drive from Dharamsala. So I was kind of, my mom was looking after 100 other kids, fostering them, while I was being fostered by another Tibetan mom in the school in Dharamsala. So that's kind of like you can tell how the generation of that Tibetan lived as a refugee kind of, it's kind of like a refugee life, a story of a refugee, how they were trying to make life out of what they are presented with. And they, a lot of the time, they were super awesome at adapting to what they are faced with. Yeah. And my mom, like, was looking after those 100 other kids, and few of them now I know them, and so actually those kids know more of my mother than myself, in terms of, because I lived in that TCV school in Dharamsala for 10 months of the year and get 2 months of the year as a holiday to go and visit my mom. So during the teenage, as I was growing up in the school, I used to go every winter holiday to see my mother, and so it was kind of like going from a TCV school, Tibetan Children's Village School in Dharamsala, to another Tibetan Children's Village School for holiday. So,
well, I mean, the whole community was disrupted. So all over India, you have different refugee camps, right?
Yeah. So all over India, like in Arunachal Pradesh, in Himachal Pradesh, in Ladakh, and down in south, where all the major monasteries were re-established.
Orissa?
Yeah, and Odisha, and
Beer.
India kind of became the refuge for the early Tibetan resettlement, and then His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government in exile was kind of established re-established in Dharamsala, which is in Himachal Pradesh, up north. For those who don't know Dharamsala, then it's on the foothills of Himalaya, and it's up on the hill, and elevation is about 1,786 meters above sea level. It's a beautiful town where actually I met a lot of hippies.
Right.
And that's when I actually, it's a beautiful little town where we were getting educated in Tibetan ways. At the same time, we would get a lot of visitors from around the globe. Probably as a kid, maybe Bob was there already, like Bob Feldman.
Yeah, in the early 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, so early 60s and till late 70s, there would be a lot of hippies, that hippie revolution of travelers who would come there. And those were the days when I actually started listening to the world of music from around the globe, because these hippies would bring the music from their country and whatever they enjoyed, and they would play it in the cafes that they are having there, whatever they were doing.
That's very interesting. That's like this, world culture somehow came to Tibet. To the Tibetan community in Dharamsala, and maybe you got the concept. Oh, I could go on stage, I could inspire people, teach people about Tibetan culture. What was in your head eventually that you became a kind of cultural ambassador?
During those times, I think I think it was great in a way because it was the Dharamsala was kind of a hub where a world would collide. And out of that, actually, if you think about it now, most of the amazing translators and Tibetan Buddhist writers, like the writers in that kind of world, it came out of those times, actually, when you think of that, you know, like
who comes to your mind? Who comes to your mind, like?
You know, the obvious one that comes to me is Bob Thurman.
Sure.
And many others, and amazing artists also, like, and so it became a cultural hub for amplifying the Tibetan. I think probably they were more attracted to the Buddhist philosophy of it initially.
Right. Yeah.
And then when they arrived there, they started to know about what has happened to Tibet and what has happened to Tibetan people, and why are these Tibetans living in India? And you know, so whole notion of homelessness, you know, so probably that kind of amplified the somehow they were drawn into their own seeking of what they were seeking for, and then they saw this misfortune that happened to Tibet, and they wanted to do something for Tibet, and that's how probably. Am I making any sense here?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, but somehow you became a star. Somehow you came to the West. How did that happen? That, you know,
it was my musical. I think it was more of what was my music that I'm not any stars or anything like that, but I would like to think that I am a aspiring artist who want to make change, and if possible, be a voice to my Tibetan community. And I find stories of an individual is super amazingly powerful to tell a story of the community. You know, so I get this from since I came to Australia, I have this platform where I can sing to 3 people or 5,000 people. And at that point of time, I have this platform to share my story, and when I share my story, it is also a communal story of Tibetan people. So in a way, the activism part of me is grown from I call myself an accidental activist because of that. Because if I didn't have that platform, I would more be I wouldn't have these opportunities that arise from that.
maybe
So,
you'd be a studio musician in Brisbane, right?
Yeah, I would have played my music the whole time, but yeah. So I started doing music, I think I was drawn to whole world of music, not only like keeping the essence of Tibetan sound in me, but at the same time, I was drawn to whole world of sounds. And so I was living in one of the most amazing musical tradition, India. India has a very amazing tradition of music and lineage of music. So that also probably inspired me. And then I feel like I'm all over the place at the moment.
No, no, it's cool. It's cool. Let us give a little structure to this.
Yeah.
It's quite beautiful, and I find myself wondering. Did you ever march in a political rally, for example? Did you ever do that?
Yeah.
Huh?
I grew up doing that every 10th of March, when every single Tibetan around the globe comes out on street, and 10th of March is the national Tibetans commemoration of when the uprising happened in 1959 in front of Potala Palace.
Right.
So every 10th of March, I would go out on streets with 1,000 other Tibetans.
Okay, now here's the thing. That's like a political act, right? This sort of public demonstration, right?
Yeah.
It's a very different thing when you play your music, isn't it? And you're sort of using culture in a way to impact people. It's different than marching in a political rally, right?
Mm.
Can you talk about a little bit the quality of the experience when you are with an audience?
I'm probably sure when I get up on the stage, I don't go with that intent in my mind.
Do you have an intent?
I go there on stage to present my songs, share my songs, and then along with the songs comes the story and why I wrote that story and why I wrote that song and the emotions that arises from that song and how it came about. And occasionally it's about a love song. Sometimes it's about the inner feeling of a moment that when I was writing that song. So it depends upon each song, and like probably so to define that, probably the best example is you just heard Snowline that when you were coming in.
Yeah, would you like us to play? Let's play a little bit of Snowline now.
Yeah, so when we were let me finish this.
Yeah.
When we were coming into this video contraption, John was playing that Snowline, and the way the Snowline came to me was in 2008. I was touring in Japan, and in Japan, while touring, there was a lot of protests going in many pockets of counties in Tibet. The reason why was 2008 was the time when Beijing had the Olympics and in China. So Tibetan people in Tibet, many out of their own, they were protesting against the Chinese regime. And I think around that time, many of the Tibetans living around the globe in freedom were wanting to do something when that was happening. Like a lot of sad stories were coming out of Tibet. And out of when I was touring Japan, that was happening. So at that point of time, wherever in Japan, when you are traveling, you visit lots of like temples and monasteries. And every time I visit a temple, there would be 2 snow lines at the gate, at the entrance of the gate.
Okay, yeah.
And right. For Tibetans, snow lines is like a powerful mythical animal, which is about leaving fear behind. And it's on the Tibetan national flag. So out of anger, I wrote this song, which turned out to be, it's so that's how the song came about. Just
let's run the song, and you can keep talking, and I can change the volume so we can hear some of the song. Is that okay?
Yeah, so the song itself kind of says, like, let's move forward without any fear. Yeah.
Can you hear it? Tenzin, who's playing this? Who are these people?
Okay, so I wrote this piece. It's quite distracting when I'm hearing the song. Can I talk about the song and then can we pause that?
Yes.
Yeah. So in this one, I have my dear friends from Camerata, a string chamber orchestra in Queensland, in Brisbane. And I've been collaborating with, somehow, fortunately, I met my beautiful friend who is the principal cellist in this orchestra, Catherine Phelp. So we wrote, when I wrote that song, and then slowly it turned into an orchestral piece because she arranged it. And then there is another version of the same song arranged by Philip Glass and Martha Mooks as well. That's on that recording is on the Last Dalai Lama movie.
So the Last Dalai Lama by Mickey Lemley.
Yeah.
Was that your first collaboration with Philip?
No, I have done a few other collaborations with Philip, because I met him probably about 18 years ago.
Uh-huh.
So when I started coming to do the concert for Tibet House, a benefit concert. So that's when I met him, and we became instantly, because of his connection to Buddhism, music, and like we instantly became quite close friends. And so he's always one of those inspiring, not only musically but also like in many I like having coffee and dinner with him and have a conversation, and we talk about some beautiful life things, like things that are happening. So so not only through the music, but also his inclination and genuine support for Tibet since 70s, probably in early 60s as well. So I guess
Tenzin, Philip said something to me for my film Refuge, and it so buried itself in my mind. He said, motivation determines everything that occurs in your life. And I thought that was such a powerful realization, and I'm still so grateful to Philip for that line,
Yeah, and also, like I'm super, like, there are many amazing artists from that time who had like some sort of connection with Tibet and Tibetan Buddhism, and so I'm really what is that called? They actually became kind of like a snow lines for Tibet. In amplifying the Tibetan stories, while we were when we didn't have many friends when we first came into exile, only friends that we knew were the nature, like the sky and the earth. And many of these amazing artists and amazing activists around that time actually, so, and Philip was one of them, and Bob was one of them. That's how probably the Tibet House started in as well. And
well, I have a little movie about that. I made for Tibet House. We made 30 years, the first 30 years Tibet House, and you gave me very generously. You gave me the music. Which
I do remember that. Yeah.
So we could show a couple of minutes of that because Philip talks about how Tibet House began. We have a few requests from people. One of them is they would love to hear your music. Maybe we could play 1 minute of Snow Lion.
Yeah, do play that, and then we will play more of the music.
Yeah,
it does. Actually, John, as you said, it's like having a dinner. It does feel like having a coffee and having a chat.
But look at all these people here. This is unprecedented.
So I hope
you must understand that these people respond to your motivation, your dedication, your art, your love, your sincerity. Everybody here, and all the people on YouTube. My mother's here, my brother's here, Emily's family's here. Jim is here, David, my brother Alex. I mean, whoa, it's you have allowed us to become a loudspeaker for your work and your life mission, and we're so grateful for your time and your kindness, Tenzin La.
I'm very. One thing that I really would like to emphasize is that there is much of a need, as much as there was at one point of time, where there was quite a lot of Tibet support, but it's somehow, I think we need to reignite that.
Okay, and I want to make a point, okay, because when Emily and Mila and I bumped into you at the stage door at the Tibet House concert this past Tibetan New Year in March, around the corner, man, there were 3,000 people could not wait to get into Carnegie Hall and hear everybody play, you, Lori, Philip. I mean, man, it was as though people just came out of a very cloudy time of COVID, and they came back. And I think it's an extraordinary demonstration of the enthusiasm for community and solidarity for Tibet. And let's not forget what happened recently with the Dalai Lama and this sabotage from the Chinese. I mean, we have to go into that. So I think that there's a lot of stuff happening that we need to take into account for what you may be observing as a sort of reduction or diminishing of support for Tibet. The virtual world, artificial intelligence, all these factors have a lot to do with where people are living their lives and how they're living them. Many people going back to the country, leaving the cities. So something has changed, and Tibet has had an enormous impact on Western culture, absolutely irreversible. This indigenous nomadic aspect of Tibet has invigorated in people an awareness of their own bodies and their own purpose in the world and how they want to live. Apart from the new age marketing and corporate, sort of narrative, Tibet has had an enormous and irreversible impact in the West. I just want to say that. Forgive me for being so vigorous about it. But, that was really something at Tibet House. And, the concert, and your concert was spectacular. And you did play Snow Lion, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Can we run Snowline for just a minute?
Yeah, and then I also want to add, like,
Yeah.
if you have grandkids, kids, and at schools going around, if you look at the World Atlas these days, Tibet is not there anymore in the World Atlas.
Really?
So, we need to make sure that Tibet is back on the map, and like it's not only that it's not only the Buddhism part. Like if you want to, when we are seeking the higher of ourself, Tibet has given that to the world when it came into exile, access to that world of seeking higher or the awakened self.
Okay.
At the same time, if China actually becomes successful in destroying this non-violent commitment that His Holiness the Dalai Lama has, so then I think for that only purpose as well, from that aspect as well, I think we need to. It's not probably like I come across like that because I'm a Tibetan, but at the same time, I'm the citizen of this global family. And I see urgency in protecting the landscapes, the environment, the freedom of Tibetan people, not only as a Tibetan guy, but also as a human being that is one of the human beings that is actually living on this planet.
You see this? You see this picture?
Yeah. So what Tibet
do you know what that is? Do you know what that is?
I got no idea, but it looks like an artwork that is.
I made this artwork. Okay, this is a replica of Chinese propaganda that was created in the 1960s, and I was asked to recreate this replica of a monk, disciplining, right? Torturing a child. That was the message that China was sending out about what was happening in the Tibetan monasteries in Tibet. Okay, this is propaganda. And this was in a show, an exhibition in Zurich called Dream World Tibet by Martin Browen, a curator who's married with Sonam Browen. You must know his wife, and Annie Wangmo, who passed away, who was one of Dorje Rinpoche's, students in Tibet. So there's one very solid, object of calculated propaganda. Horrible.
Yes, talking about propaganda, I think we also shouldn't fall prey into this propaganda.
How does that happen? How could that happen? Give us an example.
That just happened recently. Like when the Chinese communists, it probably that little thing that you were talking about, which I don't really like to talk about, where His Holiness, they were trying to defame His Holiness with that, how that 2-second video.
Yeah.
They were exactly aimed at, like giving people, people are, these days, we humans have gone away from slow reading to a very 2-second,
That's right.
The information that we get, so it's a bigger, I think it's a bigger discussion that needs to happen, where how are our kids consuming information, and how are we as a human being consuming information, and are we becoming a prey to all these people who are putting out what is that called, the English term for it, I can't remember, the content, and then that content become an information, sometimes it becomes a news, and that's only and then we don't have that patience to,
Yeah.
we have lost that patience to read a whole book.
Yeah.
We are only taking information that is only like 2 seconds or 30 seconds. Even, you know, like even the promoters will ask you to encourage you to, you know, make a 1-minute video.
Right, right.
To promote your show rather than, you know, like they don't have a, you know, so I think we need to go back to where, you know, like slow listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, like
concentration.
read the whole book.
Concentration.
Yeah.
Look, I'm getting a little blowback from some friends on the chat, and I want to apologize. I meant no disrespect by responding to Tenzin, his comment from Tano, our dear friend Gaetano Maida. He said, do not diminish Tenzin's perspective about the support for Tibet. The Tibetans here are increasingly marginalized by the Buddhist component versus the political reality vis-a-vis China. Now, Tano, you know, he's got his eyes open. He's the founder director of the International Buddhist Film Festival and Buddhist Film Archive. And so, of course, I simply want to activate and reanimate the support for Tibet, Tano, and people on this Zoom tonight, please put your emails in our chat box if you'd like to stay in touch. I'm trying to speak with Bob Thurman and some other, you know, cultural leaders in America to see how we can get the narrative right, Tenzin. And that's one of the reasons that Emily and I wanted you on the show at this very particular, precise moment when people's concentration is shrinking and we're being, you know, broken away from the contact with our body. Now, one of the questions Emily had about the body, I wish she would ask you about this concerning.
Well, I wonder if we should play a little music and then I could ask you.
Music on demand.
No Lion?
Tenzin?
Yes, please play it.
Okay.
Let's go into slow listening.
Little slow listening. Okay. And we do have to make a film about Tenzin CHOEGYAL. I agree with Tano. All right, so let's one step at a time, right? Here we go.
Thanks, Tano.
Okay. Tenzin, I don't know if you can hear me, but when you gave me this track to use in the film about Tibet House, I have such an emotional reaction to it every time I hear it. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And one beautiful thing about this is actually the song came out as a angry response, in an anger response to what is happening in Tibet. But then it became a very compassionate song at the same time. And then you can see, you know, like how a world can collaborate, you know, like I, as a Tibetan who has never heard a world of Western classical music as I was growing up as a toddler, you know, like now living in Australia and collaborating with this amazing, you know, so how we are in a way in the sounds of the world, there is that the boundaries that are created by the human human greed are actually kind of it departs that in the world of sound, you know, like you know, it's almost like I sometimes when people say, hey, can you describe your music, then I kind of say to them, if I can paint my music, I would paint it like a drifting cloud. Where the drifting clouds would be not bothered by any of the human created geographical boundaries.
Yeah.
There would be occasionally this music would, you know, the drifting clouds would bring about storm, sometimes bring about, you know, amazing you know, like rain and then occasionally bring about beautiful rainbows. But you know, the drifting clouds are drifting clouds. They are not bothered by any of this geographical greed of human, and it drifts from one end to the other end without any so that's kind of like a how I express musically. But at the same time, I think sometimes there is that notion of oneness, you know, like in the music. When you are creating with someone who is totally from a different part of the world, but when physically, but when the sound meets, they meet as if they have never left before. Right. You know, like they meet as if they're, you know,
merging,
like,
right.
So that brings about a thought that I used to have, you know, like as a baby, when you are born, and I still do have this thought occasionally. As a baby, when you are born, you are not inclined to any languages, not any particular language. You probably know all of the language of the birds, the animals, the human languages that exist on this planet, all the human languages that exist. But as we grow into the familiarization of being that particular human being, then we become, you know, like, okay, inclined to speak in English or inclined to speak in Tibetan, or that thought used to come to me quite often as a musician, you know, like when you are born, probably you are not bound by any language. You know all the language of these that exist on this planet. Not only the human language, or even the animal realm and the realms of the birds and all this, but yeah, so sorry, I'm getting a little bit carried away here, but
but you're carrying us with you. We like it. Emily has a question, and I find that very, very healing. Snow Lion for me. So
me too. I was my question is, when you performed that piece at Tibet House concert several months ago, you spoke about, I guess, the story around it. I didn't know the full story, but what I remembered was that you spoke about letting go of fear, like losing the fear. And so then when I'm experiencing the music, it's like a healing, which is very different from your experience, but maybe it is a unified feeling, but it just is so powerful. And I really, appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, Emily. Yeah.
Oh, so my question is, my question is, when you're composing the piece, is it something that comes to you? Are you aware of like the different tones, how they hit the body, or like, is there a kind of method of healing that you're incorporating into the music that you're making?
I think music in itself is a healing thing. So I don't have to impose a healing purpose to it. It is there already. It's just how a lot of the time, I think when I write music, most of the time it spontaneously arises. And also I really do like the spontaneous gestures. And I like being in that moment. And occasionally, like once you have written the piece and it's taken a shape, but at the same time, I like the freedom within that shape. And so a lot of the time these days when I do perform any of my music, I like doing it a little bit like whatever arises at that occasion, but at the same time, there is a map. So it's almost like, if you have already written a piece, then it's almost like getting to the peak of the mountain. You have the straight path, and then you can go and visit a waterfall or a creek or a tree, but at the same time you'll take a longer time to get up there. So you have different ways of doing it. So, but at the same time, when the piece is written, then there is that freedom at the same time. And then writing itself, I think it's more about connecting with your heart, and then leaving a lot of spontaneous gestures to arise.
Tenzin, can I ask you? I mean, one thing is to sing solo, but when the whole temple is chanting together, there's this incredible energy that is collectively created. Do you have these experiences when you play in public sometimes, that there's this, big collective energy?
It's always there. Like even when you are singing solo, there is that collective listening thing happening. Vocally, there might not be chanting, but at the same time, there is the collective listening. But at the same time, there is ways, like everyone in tunes with a particular thing in their own way. But at the same time, 70% of our being itself is water element within us.
Yeah.
So we will be affected in many similar circumstances, But then there is that 30% of the difference that, so, there's the individual experience. At the same time, there is the collective experience. So both are happening at the same time. So I would, yeah, like, because we do have, like, in our body, we are made of the 5 elements, and then the consciousness, and so we will be affected in that elemental level. All these 5 elements, we will be affected in very similar ways at the same time.
So that's an amazing sort of aspect from the Tibetan culture, also other indigenous cultures, that we are interconnected with the 5 elements, and of course through water, heat, space, fire, earth, material. The language of Tibet, even in the alphabet, you can kind of feel the earth presence in the alphabet. I noticed when I was studying. Do you ever like tell us the alphabet, how it sounds?
The alphabet, I'm not a very academic kind of person in that world of the alphabets, or
just the sound, like sa,
but the sound, yeah, sound of, like the universal sound is the sound of ah is always there, or there is always that, the primordial sound that my Tibetan teachers would say is the ah sound, like the primordial sound. And it ah is in every sound. Like even if you say if you say some word in English, Hebrew, or whatever language you say it in, there is always, try to find it, there is always a ah in there. And so it's kind of like the primordial. My Rinpoche, Namkhen Nobu Rinpoche, he used to tell me that, ah is existent in the, and it's a very powerful syllable, like ah, the syllable ah. But then there's many different syllables, each has its own, what is that called? Benefits.
Yeah.
Like each to its own benefits. There's many different syllables, and in so one of them happens to be ah, and then when you add naro and ma, then it becomes om, and so John. When you say John, ja, there'll be ah. Emily, there'll be ah in there. Any of your name, just try it out, and you'll find an ah somewhere.
So now, Emily, what should we do now?
Well, maybe Gina could ask a question.
Please ask.
Yes, thank you, Tenzin Lot. Such a pleasure. I feel so honored. Your music has been extraordinary for me and my practice. I guess I don't know if it's necessarily a question, but I wanted to just say thank you because I've been listening to songs from the Bardo when I do prostrations for years. And it is such an extraordinary music to listen to as I'm practicing and as I'm preparing my mind for death, essentially. And then also the music that you made with Megan and Gate Gate. I listen to that before I teach meditation. So
yeah, that was with Martha Mooks, yeah.
Martha, that's right. Thank you so much. Yeah. And I wanted to just add as well as, I travel a lot, especially in Africa, and I have been fortunate to be in Swayambhu Nathan and Mustang, and there's a lot of people out there that don't even know about Tibet. And I personally refuse to call it China. And I point out to many people, as many as I can, that it is not China. And I agree with you that we need to do what we can. And unfortunately, I think that what has happened in Tibet is going to be a cautionary tale for other parts of the world. And it is something that we need to discuss, not right now, but John, perhaps at another time, we could perhaps have a panel, because I see it happening in Africa and I'm actually quite terrified. So thank you, Tenzin La, for your extraordinary voice and your gifts to us, and also for your fierce bravery.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are a lot of dark screens with names on them. I don't know how many people are here. It's extraordinary. Daniel? Susie, hi. The lights are coming on around the world here. It's really cute. Tenzin, should we run something else? Maybe people want to see something, the Tibet House film, or there's a film of you working with children. I'm very curious what was going on. You're doing workshops with young people. I know that you dedicate some of the donations and contributions to your concert to the Tibetan school in Dharamsala.
It's actually, that's a good point to talk about. At the moment, actually, what is happening in Tibet right now is the communist regime is taking away Tibetan kids away from their family, putting them in a boarding school where it is totally Chinese education. And so these kids will be like a stolen generation, where they will be ripped off from their own stories, their family stories, their lineages. And so what China is trying to do is kill Tibet in a little children. And then, so, like for the past 70 years, whatever they have done hasn't worked. So now they are trying to find another way of killing Tibet. Is by taking away kids.
Think about all the abortions, the hysterectomies and abortions that were imposed on the women of Tibet for decades.
So for now, I find it very important to talk about the education of Tibetan kids and also education of the kids in general. Like they need to be taught. They need to be given the opportunities to know their own lineages, to have their own stories from their lineage, I live in a country now, it's called Australia. And there was this whole generation who was stolen away from their own stories. And so I do feel, how that can affect. So if you look into, there is a Tibet Action Group, Tibet Action Initiative, and then also Students for Free Tibet. They are amplifying the stories of this stolen generation that is happening right now in Tibet. And it's an important thing. So when you talked about that little thing that I was doing with the kids, it was with the Tibetan kids in Mustang and Nepal and in India. And I try to, a lot of the time, what I try to do is I have been educated from that school, Tibetan Children's Village School. So I try to give back to the community that gave so much to me. So every year I try to do a concert or two, and then and also organize a Festival of Tibet in Brisbane. And whatever the fund is raised, we send it to Tibetan Children's Village for the further education of the kids. Because, like right now, what you can, like me being able to tell my story is and holding my lineage is because that I got that education from that school that is run by, which was run by His Holiness's younger sister, like opened by His Holiness's younger sister. And so I find it very important, you know, like one time I think Philip, my friend, dear friend Philip Glass said, you know, if you hold on to your lineage, you will never be lonely. You know, so if you know your lineage, you will never be lonely. So, you know, I find some kind of affinity with that phrase that he said. You know, it's a very beautiful phrase, but you can write a whole book about it. You know, in those two little sentences that he said. I can kind of write a whole book about these two little sentences, how lineages are so important and how lineages can be super powerful in telling stories and carrying songs. Yeah, so anyway.
So now you have children, Tenzin. What are your children going to do? What are they going to do in this world?
I have two kids. One is 21 now, and one is 15. And I'm very happily married an Aussie, beautiful Aussie lady who I met in Dharamsala when she was actually doing a 2-year volunteer in Dharamsala. As a volunteer, she came to Dharamsala. So I met her there, and then it's kind of like and that's probably, if they hear I'm talking about my family, they will probably not like it much because they're.
I mean, they're in the other room or what?
My kids are very, what is that? I find them very smart. They actually are not really keen on social media, and if I have to, like, occasionally with permission, I get to share a photo of them with me on this so-called the social yeah, but I have to get permission from them. And anyway, so my kids are growing up very beautifully. Hopefully they will find a better place. Then hopefully we can leave them a good place, you know, like a better place than yeah.
Well, it's a pretty hard time to be young and to inherit the perversions of the corporate narrative and all of this strange idea about separation and identity and division. It's we have to help them out. Anyway, we want to open up the floor again to other people. Please, people in Europe, it's about 3 a.m. for you. Otherwise, other people can. And I thought maybe, Emily, what about the idea that we might show 1 or 2 films after we shut down the Zoom session? You know, that we
That's
let
a great idea.
couple of films run, maybe 5 minutes of films, the screen share. So, yeah. By the way, thank you, everyone. It's quite astonishing that you're here. And
Ron, do you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to say thank you, Tenzin. Really enjoy the music. I will look you up on YouTube and follow you as well as I can. The story of Tibet and the story of the Native American people here is very similar. It sounds like they're taking a page out of, you know, the colonizers' book when they came to America, and the same thing has happened. But this I can tell you what we were taught, that they can take our bodies, but we become seeds. They can't take this consciousness away from us. You know, they can try to stop the beliefs. They did it here until 1978. It was illegal to be an Indian. You couldn't play a drum or sing a song or anything until they passed the Freedom of Religion Act. Then they actually rescinded it 2 years later. but it was too late. Now we're allowed to participate in our cultural activities again, which at one time were illegal. And now there's more people coming along, in our country and from around the world, coming to seek the knowledge of the Native American people, and even my parents and my grandparents knew nothing about being Native American because it was illegal to be. So they would never talk about it. If you played a drum, you were put in prison, so, but this Tibetan culture, I truly believe in my heart that the more they try to suppress it, that actually the more they bring awareness to it by doing so. So I think that the culture of Tibetan people will always be with us. And I think that we are all, when we look at our political landscapes around the world, we're all looking at it with these questions like, why would they do things like this, and their credibility is just not there no more. So most of us don't even listen to them anymore or think they have to say, because we know they're just lying. I'd rather listen to you play your music than any politician say anything, because your music comes from, I feel it from the heart, and the frequencies that you're using in your songs, those, I know which ones those are. Those are the ones that grab that heartstring, and it's really beautiful the way you're doing it. But I think that, yes, we need to support the Tibetan people. We need to support the Native American people. We need to support the Palestinian people. This is going on, the African people all over the world. This is happening. But as humans, as well becomes human again and less of a people, then we change the society from within. And it doesn't matter what they say or do, because they don't have that control over us no more, because they can't change our heart. They can't change our consciousness. Keep up the great work, Tenzin. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ron is in northern Michigan in the Upper Peninsula. Ron, who just spoke with you there, Tenzin. And Gaetano wants to know when you're coming back to the USA to perform and record. And I certainly want to extend again, Emily and I, our desire to bring you here up to Woodstock, up to Delaware County, where we live, stay in our retreat here, and have 1 or 2 concerts in the region. So that's our goal for next spring or summer.
I'm planning to come in October. For Tibet Fund has invited me to for their benefit evening, and I think it's on 19th of October, I think, or 29th. I can't remember. I don't have the diary right here, but that's in New York. And then I'm going to Toronto, see my Tibetan friends and do maybe a concert up there. And then probably do one in LA. And then I can't remember, but my friend Benjamin Bogan invited me to, can't remember the exact place, but I'll let you know later on. But yeah, Skidmore, Skidmore. Guantanamo knows more than my own. Yeah, so I'll be playing with a string quartet in Skidmore, and then also, yeah, in LA there's a beautiful retreat center. So probably, John, I will come to your space as well if I'm still in the process of aligning, aligning all the dates. Yeah. And so once I have aligned all the dates.
Skidmore is not so far, huh?
Okay, so you can probably come to Skidmore. It's actually going to be a beautiful concert with the one thing that I really love doing with the string quartets or strings ensemble is that, write a song on the spot, on stage. While there is a whole lot of other song pieces that are already written, but I do like the idea of spontaneously arising on stage. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to whenever I'm playing with, yeah, if it is a full concert. But then there are times when I do like one song for the concert that doesn't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
That was I'm doing that this coming. I'm going down to Sydney for a song, 5-minute song. And yeah, so I will be doing that with my Aboriginal brothers and sisters. That 5-minute will be a spontaneous song as part of the opening ceremony. Yeah.
Just checking to see if other people have their hands up. Otherwise, Emily, what should we do? Should we make some announcements and then show some of Tenzin's films that we prepared?
And then, so I'm really happy to see you all. I haven't. So what are we going to do? Are we going to have a coffee after this? Go and have my own coffee.
We'll have a little dessert. I think it's good time for a little something sweet, and we'll join you for coffee.
Okay.
Unless Emily has another idea. My mom can make some espresso for us over there across the river. So go ahead, Em.
Well, does anyone else have a question? Or Tenzin, was there something else? Karen, you have a question?
Karen, my sister-in-law, our sister-in-law. Looks like she's lighting up there. I don't know. You went green for a second. Oh, there she is. Okay.
Okay, maybe. And Tenzin, was there anything else you would like to share before?
So only thing that I would like to share probably is if you because we all are busy human beings, and in a way we are not busy at all. We like to keep ourselves busy. In the whole scheme of this busyness thing, if you do get time, and one thing that I thought which worked quite beautifully, I mean, not beautifully, but somehow, because we live in a political world. So I think lobbying and telling whoever is your senator or MP or in your part of the world, I think writing to them is quite important, because they will be in that chair, holding that chair, whatever they are doing for the 5 years or whatever, and they do make decisions. Mm-hmm. And they have that. So I think one important thing, with sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not work, but from your own side, in a genuine, compassionate way, write to them and inform them what your desires for this planet is. You know, like, and I do that quite often. Like sometimes my friends say, "Oh, my mind is quite like one-pointed thing," because I do raise the plight of Tibet quite often in my own, because I do belong to that lineage, and I do find it important for the benefit of the wider humankind, you know, not only for the Tibetan people. So if you do get time, yeah, please do write to your senators, or over here we call them the senators or the MPs. So
yeah, we also had a request here for Tenzin to make up a song for all of us and sing it for us. Well, I mean, man, you know, that's a pretty high order.
Yeah, but, I can't make up a song right away now.
We could all just sing a ah together if everyone unmutes themselves You know,
Yeah.
we could do an could get that far. But there's also just the idea of this now moment, you know, the be here now, BNH, no, be here, BHN, the BHN effect.
There,
Right now, around the world, we're all sharing this nowness right here. Colleen Ford, she just appeared out of the nowness. There she is. Hi, Colleen Ford.
Hi, I'm sorry I put my younger picture up there, hid behind it, but this is the real me, and I want to thank Tenzin too. I learned so much that I didn't know, so you've made a more educated American here too. You know, when I talk with senators and so forth, I'm kind of active in politics, and also I know Ron, he's Upper Peninsula, Michigan, I'm Lower Peninsula. And I was just thinking, you know, Michigan is on the way from New York to LA. You don't have to know a lot about geography to figure that out. Maybe you could stop along your way. I'm from the Flint area, and we have a Whiting Auditorium, which all the performers love.
Well,
Sorry,
you know
I
what?
didn't mean to talk so long.
Colleen, you know what? Because in Minneapolis, we have very good friends, Nancy Dadak and Tupten, who actually told people about our show tonight with Tenzin. And, you know, there's another stop over there. Upper Peninsula, then
Sounds like a
St.
we're
Paul,
gonna set you
Minnesota.
up with a tour.
I'll
Thank-
personally drive him over the Mackinac Bridge if he'd like.
That's quite a
Go
bridge,
north.
Colleen.
I think
Quite a bridge.
also Katerina Verde has a question.
Hi, Katerina.
Hi. Yes, Tenzin, thank you so much. I really love your singing. It's just fantastic. And thank you. I'm thinking, so when people write to their senators or you make a political action, what is it, do you think, are you thinking of it just as an awareness, bringing awareness to politicians, or are you thinking of like direct action concepts? Like what could be a direct action that a politician could do? You know, what could, you know, because, you know, they don't always have that many ideas. So
I think it's a great question. Actually, there is a direct action driven things that you could do. And even though maybe you don't have to join the Tibet Action Initiative or Students for Free Tibet or International Campaign for Tibet or Tibet House, but all of them, they do have direct action driven campaigns. And you could get informed by them and say, okay, I want to add my voice to that action.
Yeah, you said that earlier this night. Okay.
You know, and they do have a direct, especially Tibet Action Initiative at the moment, they are actually amplifying the direct action needed to be done to stop this taking away of children.
Yeah, that's
from the Tibetan families in Tibet. And they have been raising that issue in UN and in Congress in Washington, DC as well. And so there are many ways that you can, so if you try to get some information from Tibet Action Initiative, then I think they are doing a great job with that. You know, as a musician and as an artist, I can just inform people and tell the story of Tibetan people, but I'm not a great, I'm not at a great place where I can do action-driven campaigns. But then there are activists, like I'm pretty sure in this room we have 30 or 40 people. I'm pretty sure you all have experiences in action-driven activism, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask another question? Tenzin and John and Emily, on your advertisement for the show, there's a picture of Tenzin standing there in a vest, you're looking up like this, your hair is down, and you have like this emotional thing going on. It was a live photo from when you were singing or something. Can you tell us about that moment? Do you recall? Can you tell us what was going on there? The picture really captivated my imagination, and you immediately from seeing that, you know, just could see your energy and your soul. You were just like letting it all out right there. Can you tell us about that photograph?
I'm not sure which photograph you're talking about, but I do have many moments like that, the way you are describing. Probably, I think a lot of the time when you are in the moment, you went that one.
Yeah.
That one was I was having a fun time with the photographer. I was just teasing the shit out of him. But then while you are performing, I think there are moments where you are actually connecting with invisible beings that are in the room. And so a lot of the time when I greet people when they come to my concerts, I only not greet the people who are actually present in that human form, but I also greet the people who are the beings that are there in their formless forms. So probably, yeah, occasionally that happens, and sometimes I'm just wondering what's going on. It's just a simple little thing, that a gesture that I go, oh, that light looks good, or you know, something super simple.
There it is. That one there.
Oh yeah, that was just a shout out. Like I was just when I think that my dear friend photographer, when he was taking the photo, I was just shouting out "Free Tibet" or something like that with a big like a, you know, like he was asking, you know, as the photographers, they have a ways of getting what they want. So he made me shout something, and then when I was shouting like that, you know, like
That was great.
yeah, so it was kind of like "Free Tibet" or something like, and it was kind of like a fun moment. Yeah, you know, having a fun moment with the photographer.
Great picture.
Thank you.
I like it.
Well, I think we can make a couple of announcements, but I don't want to, you know, diminish anybody's enthusiasm. If somebody wants to say something or ask Tenzin, it's about maybe 12 o'clock in Brisbane right now.
Yeah, I gotta go. I have to go soon. I would like to spend another 2 hours here, but yeah.
That's all right. We'll catch up with each other soon.
Yeah, and definitely in October, I will definitely, like, we can connect about that anyway. So
Tenzin Love, please accept our enormous gratitude and appreciation, and we're carrying the flame for you here as well as we can. This recording will be on our website in our archives, so that's easy to access and to share with people. If you want to take off, Tenzin, Emily and I'll just make a couple of announcements, and we'll run some of your films afterwards.
okay.
Yeah,
long as
but
people-
thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, and
Yeah.
have a beautiful evening or day or wherever you are. I'm gonna have a lunch and then have my beautiful day start now.
We hope you enjoy. Thanks
Okay.
for everything you've given us.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Happy
Bye.
Sawadoma.
All right. Well, here are a couple of announcements. On June 7th and 8th here in Delhi, New York, we'll screen for the first time, I believe on the East Coast, a film made by our dear friend Michael Henry Wilson, who's now departed. It's a documentary about Clint Eastwood. And we're showing that at the Catskill Momo's, a restaurant downtown Delhi. The next night, we're showing the reconciliation film by Michael about Nelson Mandela, and also Martin Scorsese, In Search of Kundun, which is a companion film for the movie Kundun. And that is our first official event here on our property. We originally premiered In Search of Kundun with a screening of Kundun with Scorsese and Michael Henry Wilson at the Cinema East on 59th Street in 1997, and it was broadcast on Stars TV. We'll be doing a performance here. It's a participatory, immersive performance. People are welcome to come here on July 21st through 23rd for the first We Do Surfing the Apocalypse karaoke event on our Institute Mountain property, and everyone's invited. You can join us virtually for that too. So thanks so very much. We hope the evening has been meaningful for you all. And yeah, let's.
If you want, sorry to interrupt. If you do want to get announcements, please put your email in the chat and we can add you to our mailing list.
Yeah. And Emily, we'll run a couple of films now. Is that convenient for everybody? Or you want to all say goodnight as you will, as you wish. We'll run a couple of films. The first will be
with Tenzin's music.
Tenzin's music. Okay. So, all right. Have a good night, everyone, and enjoy the films. Here comes, let's see, the first one will be, how about the Bardo? Well, yeah, let's look at Tenzin and the students. I think that'll be interesting. Full screen, loop, full screen, okay. And here we go with that. Thank you, thank you.
아니 템 라방염도 아니 고쳐라 스테보라 아니 디나라 인간
John, you're muted.
It's pretty easy to find Tenzin CHOEGYAL's work online. Just type his name in and you'll see videos there. Here's the Tibet House video. Yeah, here we go.
The whole country was abducted, and the world didn't notice. They walked out of Tibet. Tibet House began with just a handful of people. Bob Thurman was one, Richard Gere was one, I was one. Melissa Matheson was also another one.
You know, if we allow them to be destroyed, what does it say about us?
These Tibet houses are so key because they are the cultural embassies of the Tibetan people.
The tragedy of Tibet became a huge cultural windfall for the West.
You can, you know, pursue your path as an individual, of course, but it really is wonderful to feel part of a group, and that's what Tibet House provides.
Tibet House, I think it's one of the initial center that promoted Tibetan culture. Even before I was part of the Tibet House benefits.
A lot of artists had been very interested and engaged in Tibetan culture. Tibet House, which came along in the late 80s, really focused that energy of American artists.
So that about wraps it up for us tonight. We're so thrilled that you all were with us. And thanks to this audience and very participatory audience and friends on YouTube and Facebook. Good night and enjoy the rest of your day wherever it is.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you and have a good day.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Bye-bye.